Before we get started, I just have to at the very least bring it to your attention and highly recommend watching this video if you want more in-depth info of what pretty much set the basis for this one. But for the sake of some, here are the Cliff Notes version. Kairi has finally claimed her seat among the characters with critical character development, and because of that, Kairi's backstory is finally becoming more relevant. Her grandmother's story from over a decade ago was retelling the events of Union Cross, as well as warning us about the return of the Master of Masters in the Darknesses. Through the process of elimination, that person is Ava, and now that Luxu has his keyblade back, it's only a matter of time before shit hits the fan, ultimately leaving us with these questions to answer. You're caught up, let's go. So in order to make understanding of heads and tails, we're going to have to tackle each one of these subjects individually and ultimately have them all wrapped together to complete each other. Beginning with this one. What does any of this have to do with Ava? If this is Ava, what was Ava's goal? Well, we know that she accomplished her role of getting the dandelions to flee to the outside world and carry on the light, but afterwards she kinda just vanished, which honestly wouldn't be that surprising if she returned with all the other foretellers, but she didn't, meaning that when she disappeared, she didn't go with them. But why? Well, let's look at a specific scene to find some possible clues, that being the one in Kingdom Hearts 3 when the foretellers all reappear. Now, of course, during this we have the shocking reveal of Xigbar being Luxu and the fact that the foretellers are even here, but that's not what we care about today.
I thought you were dead.
My death was greatly exaggerated.
Let's look at the specific instances in when Ava's name had been brought up, starting with this.
I guess Ava didn't make it after all.
Meaning what?
I told her, clear as day, what it is I had to do.
And is that why you decided to exclude her?
As if. Ava had her own mission, and she carried it out.
Okay, so let's dissect this. Luxu states that he told Ava exactly what it was he had to do. And based off his tone when saying, I guess Ava didn't make it after all, that means he didn't know 100% what would have happened to Ava. We know that Ava and Luxu really never did see eye to eye. They were even the first clash that initiated the events of the Keyblade War. Even looking during this encounter, Luxu never revealed exactly what it was he had to do. He only told her the truth about the traitor, meaning that there was a whole nother encounter between Luxu and Ava where he does reveal this that we have not seen. The truth about the traitor being that there wasn't one and it was made up so they would fight each other and build negative emotions to draw out the darknesses. But going back to the line, I told her exactly what it was I had to do, makes it seem as if Luxu didn't just stop there, but possibly revealed everything, down to the very point of using them as vessels to destroy the darkness. If Luxu, the Master of Masters' right-hand man, reacted the way he did when he heard such an insane plan, just imagine how the foretellers, the ones that were being manipulated, would react, especially Ava. Gula then asks, is that why he chose to exclude her? And Luxu replies, as if. Ava had her own mission, and she carried it out. Now this line in particular is a bit striking to me. We all know that her mission, or role, was to build the dandelions up and send them on their way. But that's already happened years ago. Why is he saying it as if it just happened recently? Well, to answer that, we're gonna have to put a pin in it and explain another crucial detail to arrive to said answer, and that is Luxu's role. Remember the Master of Masters' true goal to annihilate the darkness, implanting them into the foretellers in order to give them a form so that they can be destroyed. Remember the only person he disclosed his true plan to? Luxu. Do you know what I think very well may be in the box? Those exact same true darknesses. And as for the other 6 of the 13, we see 4 of them get trapped with our player character. And if you were to add another 2 into the mix, we essentially know what happened to those ones as well. That's right, I'm talking about Vanitas and Master Xehanort. Vanitas is an obvious explanation because during the events of Union Cross, we saw one of the true darknesses take over Ventus, which essentially led to becoming Vanitas in the future, pure darkness.
And what you are is darkness?
What I am is darkness.
Okay.
How is that okay? Vanitas?
And as for the case of Master Xehanort, that could be a whole video in and of itself, but I'm gonna wait to go into specific details until Dark Road is finally finished. But overall, look at Master Xehanort when he was younger. One distinct feature that all of us have noticed and questioned is the color of his eyes. When did they change color? This switch from his silver eyes to his traditional color is in fact the detail of Master Xehanort being taken over by one of the true darknesses. And as we all know, Master Xehanort did in fact run into the Master of Masters at one point.
All right, all right. The world needs you. I'll grant you that one.
And by the world, he meant me. He needed Xehanort to carry out his plan. He needed Xehanort to forge the keyblade so that he can bring the darknesses back and finally take care of them once and for all. The Master of Masters gave Luxu the box filled with the pure darknesses to carry and keep under his control throughout history so that it would never fall into the wrong hands and potentially end the world before he has a chance to even stop it. That explains both Luxu's reaction to hearing what's in the box, because why the f does the Master of Masters have super deadly darknesses as pets?
But why?
As well as the Master emphasizing to Luxu to never, ever open it, because if they escape, he'd be back to square one, and we'd have a whole nother war on our hands. And to top it off, this scene at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3 is in fact the act of implanting the darknesses in the foretellers. Now that he has his keyblade back, and in turn the power to do so, he then called the foretellers back to see it through. But why Luxu specifically? It's because Luxu's keyblade is the only thing capable of opening the box, or rather Xehanort unlocked the box for him. Look at the box. An obvious detail many of us have come to instantly notice is the 13 supposed locks surrounding the sides. It's safe to say with these 13 locks, we would need 13 keys to open them. You see where I'm going with this? That's right, the 13 keys that were forged during the Keyblade War. By clashing during the Keyblade War, these 13 keys were forged, unlocking the true power of the no-name Keyblade. The same way in Birth by Sleep how the Keyblade was incomplete, the no-name has been incomplete this entire time, and with the clash between the 7 light and 13 darknesses, it has now completed its true form, and through that Luxu is now able to utilize its true power and carry out what the plan the Master had given him. And as soon as the war had finished and the key had been completed, whose hands did it immediately fall back into? Who also had the box with them and also called the foretellers back? And of course, who is the man who orchestrated all of these events to carry out this insane plan with the foretellers? It all pieces together. Again, this scene at the end of Cage 3 is the last time we will ever see the foretellers being themselves, not controlled by darkness. During this entire scene, we constantly see the foretellers asking Luxu, "What is your role? What is your role? Luxu, what is your role?" And then towards the end of the scene, we see him say, "I hope you have time for long stories," as he gazes down towards the box. And we can only hope and pray that Sora and the gang can figure something out, because that would be a truly sad fate. Obviously, hearing this insane plan, Ava wouldn't go through with it. Ava was always a put the safety of the world first before all, even the Master kind of individual. The Master says jump, everybody says how high. Ava asks why, and if she doesn't like the answer, she won't jump. That's why she didn't show up with the other foretellers when called. That's why Luxu again seemed like he was uncertain if Ava would show, and when she didn't, he finally got his answer. I told her clear as day what it is that I'm supposed to do. Translation, I told her exactly what it is I'm about to do to you. So that takes care of that, but this doesn't necessarily answer what it is that Ava carried out, because again, Luxu has been traveling throughout time, keeping a close eye on his keyblade, meaning that even back when Scala was vibrant and alive, he would have been near and would have already known Ava carried out her role. So the surprise value definitely should have gone down decades later. Whatever he was referring to here was an event that he saw recently, and it is because of that something that he knows she achieved her goal. That goal being to stage a revolution. Yes, Luxu and Ava are in fact working together. From when the Master of Masters told him what was in the box, to hearing of his insane plan with his friends, to the decades of just sitting and watching as darkness destroyed all worlds, all because the Master told him to. None of the foretellers are true darknesses, and despite how difficult some could be, their heart and goals always belong to the light and peace. Luxu was no different. Even when Brain straight up just wanted to die, Luxu hijacked him to save him. He's not the type to just watch people die. Imagine him having to sit there and do just that for years to come. He's had enough. Flashback to the confrontation between Luxu and Ava. By the way, we never actually saw how this ended. We just saw them clash, and that was that. It is at this moment we see Luxu reveal the truth about the traitor. But if you look at what he says, he doesn't say that there isn't a traitor. He says that's who the traitor is, implying the person. But as we all know, Luxu ultimately isn't the traitor. He didn't do anything that the master didn't tell him to do, nor did he betray his friends in any way, shape, or form. In fact, he was significantly hands-off. The person he is talking about is the master of masters. Luxu told Ava that the real traitor was the master of masters. This is then clarified by the fact that Ava refuses to accept it, and Luxu's like, if you refuse to accept it, then follow your fate and fight. If you do not wish to oppose fate, if you do not wish to oppose the master, then fight. That's all any of us can do. But of course, as I stated before, Ava is not the one to give up easily. Even if it's a small minuscule chance, she will attempt to defy fate. This is Luxu's cry for help. He's been stuck under the master's thumb for as long as he can and will remember. However, it's obvious he doesn't think the master's plan is the best course of action. We've seen instances where Luxu didn't just watch and interfered with events such as getting Brain out alive, specifically going against the master's orders to just observe. But the reason that was okay was because in the grand scheme of things, the master didn't really care or see that as going against him. All he cared about was Luxu living on and passing down the no-name so that he can see into the future. And Luxu, using Brain as a reason to do that, was able to kill two birds with one stone, discreetly saving Brain while not arousing suspicion with the master. Luxu is restricted by the gazing eye, but Ava had no such restriction. Well, maybe the master's intentions are beyond this world. I wonder, Ava, are you capable of saving us? Luxu would continue to abide by the master's instructions to not arouse suspicion, all the while Ava works in the shadows to build a force to help stand against the master of masters, preparing something for the day of ruin that will come yet again. That something or someone being Sora, Riku, and more specifically Kairi. If you remember from the beginning portion of this video and in the last video, I stated that Kairi's grandmother was Ava. Not only did Ava not want to show up and abide by the master's insane plan, but she couldn't even if she wanted to, because by the time of the events of KH3, she had passed away. Or has she? Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the gospel of all holy knowledge, the Kingdom Hearts Ultimania. In the Ultimania, a passage states that only a Keyblade Master, or someone with the power equivalent to one, can perform the bequeathing or take out their own heart and transfer it to a different body. Xehanort was not the only one able to do this, though he was the one to abuse this power. Theoretically, any of these multiple wielders can transfer their own heart to another body. Yes, I'm including Sora in this list. He may not be an official master, but he damn sure has the equivalent, if not more power than one, and I will die on this hill. Ava performed this ritual on herself and Kairi. The same way that Xehanort did with Terra and Luxu did with Xigbar, they all had one thing in common when doing this. They all were about to pass away due to old age, but they still had a mission to carry out. And Ava's mission was simple: to stop the master and save her friends. Because it comes down to simply, if you're not with us, then you're against us. However, with the box being in his possession, the only problem was that she could not act if she didn't know where or even who Luxu was. The only clue being her recognition of his keyblade, eventually leading her to Xehanort, and in turn, Radiant Garden, where she waited and waited, biding her time for Luxu to show himself and reclaim his keyblade. But that time never came, and she could not give up. An oath to return could both pertain to Sora, as well as Ava's promise to save her friends. I am not running. I will be back. Or at least that's a possibility. Honestly speaking, this is really stretching it, but I felt the need to say it just because I love messing with your minds. Okay, so Ava didn't show up because she passed away. That part I stand by. But she didn't transfer her heart. Remember back in the last video, I mentioned what Xehanort said was a bit too specific, meaning that someone else told him this. Someone else brought Kairi's name up. Who else other than her grandmother, Ava? Remember, while Luxu was preoccupied playing the fool, quite literally because none of us would have guessed Xigbar anyways, Ava needed to prepare. And Keyblade wielders in his time were few and scarce, and that's where Kairi comes into play. Your heart will resonate with that of a Keyblade wielders. Xehanort thought he was pulling a fast one and using it to his advantage because he needed Keyblade wielders for his plan. But little did he know he was not the only one with a plan that required Keyblade wielders. And even if it's not by her own hand physically, she will make sure her friends are saved. Kairi was drawn to Riku and Sora was the key to reconnecting everybody. If it wasn't for Kairi, none of this would have happened. Luxu couldn't help but smile after seeing the results during the Keyblade War. And after seeing their strength firsthand, Luxu knew that they were the ones. Look at the outcome of the Keyblade War. At the end of it all, there were 0 casualties on the side of light, with the exception obviously being Sora. And remember earlier in the video I talked about how Vanitas and Master Xehanort were 2 of the super deadly darknesses, and Sora was able to best the both of them, meaning that going into this this next war, Sora is the best trump card that they have. With him, it just may be possible to defeat these deadly darknesses. It was just simply too lucky. Ava, you crazy son of a gun. You actually did it. Or Kairi's grandmother is someone completely random, but what's the fun in that? And breathe. I know that was a lot to get through, but hey, we made it. Round of applause all around. Congratulations, you have officially just listened to some random guy rant about Kingdom Hearts for 10 plus minutes. How does it feel? Good, right? No? Didn't think so. But even if it doesn't feel good, you'll still like the video, right? Right? And like always, if you like this video, then you might want to check out some of my other ones. They exist. Look, I like to give myself the excuse that my videos are art, and art is subjective. At least that's what I tell myself to sleep at night. But of course, as always, I love your faces. Hope you're having a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time. Later.